Nobody wants normal cars. Weird and unique stuff rules the auction platforms. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. All right, welcome everyone to a live episode of Bid Nerds. My name is John Polnick. We are coming to you live from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, as well as my partner Michael Deeb, all the way on the, I guess that would be the left side of your screen or right side. I don't know. The guy on the end, that's my partner. He's in San Francisco. And right in between, man, you guys are in for a treat. We have a real person here, someone, an actual expert, legend, Jeff Glucker. Come on.
Wow.
Founder of Hooniverse, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like talking about cars and how much they sell for, so apparently this is the perfect show for that.
Where you been then? What the hell? Come on. We've been at this for years, and okay, this is good. I am so excited to have you here. It's going to be great to get your opinion on the cars that we make predictions on. If you're new to this show, that's what we do. We find the most interesting listings from Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids, sometimes Speak Our Market. We talk about the listings. We analyze the listings, not just the cars, but the listings, because we really want to get into the nitty gritty on why cars sell and why they don't sometimes. So we always start every episode by going over the predictions that we make and the predictions that we made on the last episode. Before we do that, I want to shout out to the Nerd Herd and all of our friends who are watching live and hanging out in the chat. If you're new to the show, you really need to get in there and join the chat, introduce yourself to everyone. We call everyone there the Nerd Herd, and you're going to make some great friends, and that's really where you're going to get, I mean, I don't know, usually I say that that's where you're going to get the best information, the smartest people on the show or in the Nerd Herd, but today we have Jeff, so there may actually, you might want to actually pay attention to what's going on the screen, not just the chat here. But
Jeff, what's it feel like knowing there's about an hour left of your automotive career?
That's great. I'll be honest, I just got back from a 2-week vacation, so it's so hard to get back into work anyway. It was one of those vacations where you think, like, what else could I do with my life instead of going back to work?
You're off to a bad start.
I think the same thing too, but then I realized that, everyone, like, anything that I'm qualified to do can be done by, like, robots or a touch screen at McDonald's, so I'm stuck here.
Or AI.
All right, guys, let's get to it. Let's get to the predictions from last episode. What's the first car on the list? Michael Deeb, I'm excited about this one.
All right, so I have a sneaky suspicion that Jeff has probably driven more variety of cars than you and I combined, and that is saying something. I do not say that loosely. However, I will be the first to tell you I'd be shocked if Jeff has driven a 1982 Porsche 911 SC that has a G50 gearbox and an LS3 behind the seats. So here we go. This was JP's car that the Bid Nerds listed. This was we are in the infancy of the podcast host becoming a listing service and trying to monetize this Nerd Herd for something. Out of Las Vegas, Nevada was JP's incredible slant nose LS3 conversion. This car, JP, is just unbelievable. So we've got a Euro SC. Somebody put a fiberglass 935 sort of Kremer style body kit on it. It is actually painted a dark gray metallic and actually looks really good in the sun. The color is an attractive color for the car. A gentleman who's a retired Boeing engineer out of the southern part of Phoenix, Arizona, bought that car and then decided to embark on his fantasy of doing an LS3 swap to a car like this. So he did that over time. His health was not good. The project took a lot longer than he suspected. He gauges it as about 4 years underneath the car, getting it all sorted out, probably put about 1,000 miles on it, listed the car regionally into classifieds. JP bought the car late last year. JP has now driven the car, sorted it out, kind of done a lot of the final parts of the shakedown, as it were. JP did a little more cohesive interior, adding the status seats and just kind of running the car through and getting it going. I have had the pleasure of driving this car a couple of times. And that gearbox with this car is way more refined than the cosmetic appearance of the car would tell you or lead you to believe. This car actually drives fantastic. The wizards at Patrick Motorsport that put the Hargett shifter to that G50 and all that exterior linkage, it is unbelievable. JP said in the video, it's like using a beautiful bolt action rifle, and that's a great analogy. This car is super, super fun to drive, and all that torque makes it completely usable and daily-able in hot climates like Vegas and Phoenix, Arizona, because of course it's got a vintage air conditioning system, and it's a water-cooled car. So we listed the car. JP took these great assets. He and Lee Patet went out to Red Rock and filmed, got some good videos and stuff. We threw it up there under the Bid Nerds moniker, and we had fantastic engagement, big bids from the very beginning. The car closed on Monday, and we wondered aloud, what would this Frankenstein, this pearl-clutching, air-cooled 911 bring with a Corvette heartbeat? And so thus the bidding and the guesswork, and I mean guesswork, began. Our friends over at Classic.com tell us that on average, Jeff, a 1982 911 SC, a standard one, in the secondary market is typically like a $55,000 conversation. But there are a lot of SCs that are modified, most of them made into long hoods. But there is a listing, a column at Classic.com for modified SCs. The average on those is like $89,000. So I took I didn't guess. I recused myself from guessing because I'm the listing agent. But Chris Carbine, one of my good friends in the Nerd Herd, he put in a proxy bid for me. So his guess on my behalf was $58,000. JP had his friend Sahan, also known as the Persian Pillow. Sahan ventured a guess as for JP, and that was $55,935. And then we had Buddha, a.k.a. Mike Myers, was in studio as guest host and third nerd. Buddha also took a guess in the $58,000 realm. So, Jeff, now that you've seen the car, it looks fantastic with the stickers and the livery. It looks like a wild, wild car. But how well it drives is something that you almost cannot describe. It drives so beautifully. It's so well executed that it winds up being a really fun car, and it obviously, and no matter what it sells for, it's a tremendous value. So Jeff will throw you right into the fire with one of the weirdest cars you've ever seen. What do you think something like this would hammer for with good photos on Bring a Trailer?
I mean, so Bring a Trailer is tricky because half of them are going to hate it. You know, oh, it doesn't have steel in the nose, it's trash. That's before they get to the engine out back, which LS3 is great choice because if you broke down, you could fix it in a Walmart parking lot. I mean, those guesses in the 50s are crazy low to me. Even modified Porsches are just untouchable these days. I feel like I was going to be low, and maybe I'm way off base here because maybe there's enough love and hate fighting against each other from the Porsche fanatics. I was going to say 125.
Well, 125, and you might wind up being closer. Jeff, believe it or not, and much to my partner's surprise, our car hammered for $79,500 where it sold on a whopping 50 bids. And I do say surprise. JP was pleasantly surprised by that number. Again, he was happy and thrilled and on pins and needles to see if it would get into the 50s. Shocked to see when it got into the 60s. And when we got into the 70s and we did a little live War Room close, just an impromptu show like this to watch the close. Once it got into the 70s, JP looked like he'd been drinking it all the night. He's like, what the hell is happening? Like he had just found out that Kennedy been shot. He's like, no way. So,
I'm shocked that's not a six-figure car. I'll be totally honest. I mean, I know LS3, like people, whatever, it's a Porsche. They want straight or flat six and all that stuff, but it still has the G50. I'm curious how you made a G50 to an LS3. It clearly has QA1 bits on it. I think the look is cool. Maybe for some Porsche people, it's too much look at me, but that's easily fixable. I thought you were going to tell me a much higher number, but it's also great that you also understand and we're ready for a much lower number. So, I mean, it seems like well bought, well sold in my book.
Yeah. JP was very sensitive to one of the first things you said, which is that half the people in the Porsche community frown upon something that isn't, trying so hard to be original and the way it was done. There's a whole new generation of people that we know up and down California and across the world that are reimagining what it's like to own and run and operate an air-cooled Porsche. And there's a lot of modifications. Guys like Magnus Walker are ushering in a whole idea of like, hey, this is your Etch-a-Sketch, draw your own picture. And JP wondered aloud if it would revoke his PCA card because of this car. But yeah, 79,000 by all accounts is a strong number for a car that lacks any kind of originality. There's almost no SC left on this car outside of the VIN, but that doesn't matter. If you take it for what it is, it's a tremendous value at that number. And JP, well done, man.
Thank you, and thanks for everybody in the Nerd Herd who, I mean, really, the Nerd Herd was a big part of it. We were really worried about that wave of hate. I was like, okay, this thing's going to go live, and it's just going to get ished on by people. I mean, I was just like waiting for the pearl clutching to happen. But, you know, the fact is, the PCA is dying, and it's sad to say, but look, you know, for better or worse, the younger generation that is now taking the helm, these younger guys that are getting into the enthusiasm world, the guys that have been fans of Hooniverse and those types of things, they're unencumbered by that orthodoxy of the boomer sensibility, right? They just don't give a ish if it has the original bolt on picture 63. Oh, that knob isn't the right angle. Who cares? What does it do? Does it have fun? Is it fun? If yes, move forward. It's just, is it original? If it's not, who cares? Keep moving. I mean, it's great, and it was nice to see Stuttgart Market Letter even put something out, and they said, hey, how close to 150 is this thing going to come? And so I think they're more, with what Jeff is thinking, and I wish there were more people at the auction thinking the same thing. But again, we're very happy with the results, because trying to find comps, or BAT had no idea. I was threw a number at them. They're like, oh no, it's going to be. So we were darn near basically saying no reserve. I mean, because the number that they gave us just was not nearly enough. So we were on pins and needles to the end, but it was a great result. So thanks again for everyone's help. What do you guys think of that result? What do you think of that result, Jeff? I mean, I guess you kind of already.
I mean, so the reason I went to the number I went, and I thought I'll be totally honest, I thought I was being conservative. So I've driven some. There's a company down in Encinitas called Michello's Classics.
Oh yeah, father and son.
Actually, yeah, I've driven some of their cars. I spent a weekend with the car that actually went on Bring a Trailer, the blue 930. Great weekend, by the way. They have another one heading my way that I get to spend a few days with. And when they told me the number on that car that they were hoping for, I was like, that's bananas. Like that's like what Singer started at, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I drove the car to Good Vibes that weekend, and all of the wealthy Porsche people who were already there were like, oh, this is a $500,000 car. I was like, okay, so their price isn't far off from what the market is. Yeah. So when you see what I'm going to call this a hot rodded 911, that's why I think, obviously it's not a $200,000 and $300,000 car, but that's why I was like 125 seems like an all day play. And, but yeah, so yeah, you landed in between that, the enthusiast who gets what that car is, and the other people who are like, I'm not bidding on that.
And let's face it, it's cosmetically it's not perfect. It's got rock chips and scratches and all kinds of stuff. I mean, but you at this price you could afford to go in and make it perfect and still come out ahead. I think if someone really if I were going to keep the car, the only reason I wound up selling is because another opportunity to buy something I've wanted for a long time has popped up. So I had plans for this thing. There's all kinds of stuff that I would have done that I think that having done those things, like, making the wheels more period correct or cleaning some of the cosmetic stuff up and just buttoning more stuff up, I think that then, a six-figure would definitely have been expected. But again, we're happy with the results. Thanks again for everyone helping out. Let's move on. What's the next car on the list? Michael Deeb.
All right, JP. On Cars and Bids, we're going to circle back to the 1977 Porsche 911 Turbo Coupe. That's a 3-liter Turbo Carrera that was listed by our good buddy Chris Carbine out of Carbine Motor Cars down in New Orleans, Louisiana. This car is on a clean Louisiana title and is showing 71,000 kilometers. That comes out to about 45 to 47,000 miles, depending on how you do your math. The car looks really nice. And as Cars and Bids has now pivoted, Jeff, to start opening the door to older, more classic cars, Chris Carbine, who's been one of their better, stronger, and more consistent and obviously integrous sellers, has become, sort of a recognized regional person that would be, the way BAT does partners. Cars and Bids has sort of knighted Chris Carbine to be somebody in the South for folks that they can trust and turn to. So Cars and Bids was very vested in this car succeeding. So they sent some people down from Cars and Bids to help with this car, and I think another one that should be live and we'll probably cover on Sunday night show. But the gist of it is that they went down and helped with the photos and the assets to help make sure that Chris made a good splash with excellent assets as this car came to market. With just low miles, being a Japanese market Turbo Carrera, we've got European bumperettes and a slick top, two features that would not have been available on this car at a Porsche dealership back in 1977. The car also has low miles. The paint is fair to good. But the rest of the car looks to be in tip-top condition. Again, with that wing, the slick top, the Euro bumperettes, H4s. JP, I'm feeling this car. I really like it. So as we go, our friends at Classic.com tell us that the average selling price for the 930 Turbo Carrera, the 3-liter non-intercooler cars, is typically $169,000 in the secondary market. This car has kind of one strike against it for being not a ZZZ because it predates the 17-digit fins, but being a European or sort of rest of the world car, that kind of a knock. There is kind of a value add to having the slick top, though, because that wasn't available here. So I sort of figured it would be a wash. With that in mind, I expect the selling price of this car to be in line with Classic's average. My bid, $168,000. JP, you took the under, and I mean right underneath my chin. JP came in at $167,930, basically occupying the real estate below me with all the bids down there. And then our good friend Buddha, Mike Myers, was in studio in the Container Park with JP on the last show. It's great to have him back. His bid just above me. These two good friends of mine leaving me no space to get a win. I was basically porked from inception. His bid, just $169,000 or Classic's average. So here we go. A couple things to consider, Jeff, before you spit out a number. It is a nice car, and it is a nice seller, but we're on a platform that doesn't have a lot of experience selling this type of vehicle. That being said, there's a lot to like on this car with the slick top and the fair mileage, and they're very good assets. So do you think Doug DeMiro could sell Chris Carbine's Japanese market Turbo Carrera, and what would be the number for that?
I'd like to believe he could, and I do like that they pivoted to opening their doors to wider cars. This ticks a lot of boxes. It's super clean looking. Silver is boring on most cars, but looks right on Porsches. With the black interior, this car with the black wheels, all of it speaks. And maybe my brain is so broken from multiple things related to the economy, how modern Porsches are priced. I recently had a GTS that's stickered at 206 in my driveway. Just banana stuff. So I'm gonna go low for me. I think going low for me is 185. I thought this thing would clear 2. Yeah. And if I'm wrong all night, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That's all right. We're wrong all the time. So we have a whole darn show about being wrong.
Yeah. And listen, I don't think that the value at the number you're talking about isn't terribly far off, but I do think they got to do an even better job of presenting the car than even Cars and Bids has sort of assisted with Chris Carbine. The other thing to consider is that the car is on Cars and Bids, and they are just getting into this genre of car. And so they're
should have been a bring a trailer car.
They have a strong audience for weird cars, and they have a strong audience for lease returns. But as they get into the collector classic market, this isn't an Alfa GTV, and this isn't an SC coupe or whatever. This is, $150,000 to $200,000 collectible Turbo Carrera. They are building their portfolio of clients for that market. And the problem is they're just not there yet. Our car hammered for $118,500.
Oh my God!
Where it unfortunately failed to sell on just 21 bids. So again, I don't think that's any fault of the car. I don't think that's any fault of the assets. The Cars and Bids had a big role in, and it's certainly no fault of the seller as they're going. But the three of them together on Doug DeMiro's platform still aren't there yet. So we're watching a platform open up their doors to a new segment of the market, and they're in their infancy, JP, and I think they've got a lot of work to do. Are there any tips that the bid nerds could give them to help push a car like that into the zone of $160,000 to $185,000 and get a car like this sold?
Yeah, this should easily have made the mark, $160,000 all day long for this car. Look, the problem is, our good friend Chris Carbine, we love him. He's a big fish in a small pond. Cars and Bids just doesn't have the eyeballs. The platform has relied on the views it's gotten organically from Doug DeMuro. Doug DeMuro has a very big audience, but every single person that watches Doug DeMuro is on Cars and Bids. That's just not enough, guys. You're going to have to, at some point, open up the wallet and actually spend money on advertising to attract a greater audience of people that you don't already have, especially since you guys have been around for 5 years now, maybe more, maybe less, something like that. At this point, everyone just thinks of Cars and Bids as the place for cars that are only, 20 years old. They have no idea that this kind of stuff is there. So no one shops for this kind of stuff. They're going to have to put it out in the general market. They're going to have to get the word out. Otherwise it will never happen. Doug DeMuro's reach is not great enough to expand their eyeballs. What do you think of that result, Jeff?
I mean, Doug should have bought the car.
Yeah,
that's an insane. I'm curious what the reserve was, because it was probably up closer to your numbers, which makes tremendous sense. A car like that I feel like on Bring a Trailer would have been extremely successful. At the same time, beyond Doug's reach and Cars and Bids reach and all that, I mean, could this all be signs of, like, the Porsche market of all the car markets is probably the last one to slow down, but maybe this is that sign, because that's crazy. That is a gorgeous car. I think the Japanese bit adds some neat uniqueness to it, the slick top, all that stuff. So I don't know.
I mean, all that stuff that Deeb is talking about as negatives, I just don't think anybody cares about it. You just go back to what we were talking about at my slant nose. My partner, Michael Deeb, he's been in the car business for a long time, and it's been like pulling teeth trying to get him to get over this whole, the Ferrari mechanic isn't related to Enzo Ferrari, so it's not worth as much money. And he's finally coming around. I don't think any of that nonsense matters. This is a $160,000 car on BAT. It just is. Hell, you could get that much on Marketplace on Facebook for this car. Cars and Bids can't do it, and you
get 150 on OfferUp.
Right? I mean,
CarMax will give you 148.
Yeah, CarMax. Yeah, exactly.
Do you take Zelle?
With a warranty.
Send me your insurance information, and I'll get right back to you.
I'll go get a home equity line of credit right now.
They also take Walmart gift cards.
Yes.
Yeah, that all works out.
So, JP, we're talking about eyeballs, and you made a good point that, like, just because Doug's got a big, following in social media does not necessarily translate that they've got buyers for these types of cars. Just to give you a couple numbers to chew on, we sold your car at Hammer at $79,500 on just 9,400 views on that listing on BAT. Chris Carbine's car failed to sell at $118,500 with 30,217 views, and they couldn't get to 125 grand. I mean, like,
it's because
crazy.
It's the big fish, small pond. Yeah. It's like,
yes,
it got all the views of everyone who was on the platform. But
right.
BAT, my car got 9,000 views. Okay, there's a million people watching the thing. 1.4 million people are registered on BAT. Registered. That's not counting people that are just hanging out and looking. So you're just casting a much wider net when you're on BAT. That thumbnail that you have, that one little picture, that's why it's so important to make sure that that first picture is a good one that gets people's attention and get the people that might be interested. Look, I've been in the advertising business for a million years, right? Eyeball, the cost of a gross impression, there's something called gross impressions and net impressions. If you have a billboard on the side of the road, I hope this isn't too boring, but if there's a billboard on the side of the road and 100 people drive by it, that's 100 impressions, right?
Yeah.
100 gross impressions.
Yeah.
If you have a billboard and one guy drives by it 100 times, it's still 100 gross impressions, but it's only one net impression. So you need a larger, you need more net impressions in order to get buyers. And Cars and Bids, as of yet, does not have it. I think they're literally going to have to pay to get those eyeballs. Let us know what you think in the comments below. How can Cars and Bids fix this problem? It's a big problem for that platform if they want to expand. Let us know what you guys think, and let's get to some more cars. We've been on this one for a while.
Okay, JP, there was a no reserve auction for this 1986 Porsche 944 Turbo that is a safari style. Check it out, a transaxle car with box fender flares, as a safari car. Lucas, the bid turn, said, we're still doing safaris. That's so 2019. But this car was running no reserve out of Dallas, Texas. Kind of dig that it's got 340 horsepower by Lindsay Racing and a 5-speed manual. This thing must be an absolute gas, and no matter what it's going to sell for, that has to be like the stupidest value ever. So JP, here we go. Our friends at classic.com tell us that the 86 Porsche 944 turbos typically bring $31,000 in the secondary market. I thought this car had a chance to get to $25,944. You took the under at $21,951. And Buddha, aka Mike Myers in studio, he took the real estate underneath you at just 20 grand even. So what do you say, Jeff? Have you seen? We've seen a couple of 924 turbos as safari cars with like 150 horsepower, but this thing is a certified rocket, and it's got mud and snow tires. It's got knobbies. What do you think?
I love it. I still love safari cars. I still have a project car that hasn't had an engine longer than the safari trend has been a thing that I wanted to safari, and it still doesn't have an engine, and I'm still going to safari it. I'm going to go like 22 on this, and if it's 22, I think it's well bought and probably well sold, even though it is like I love the work they did on the trim. There's a couple things I'd change just from an off-roading perspective. I ditched the methods but that's minor stuff like that. I think it's a super rad car.
Yeah, very good.
You would win Radwood.
Yes, you would, and you'd be in the hunt with 22. Our car hammered for $20,500, where it obviously sold running no reserve, just 21 bids, JP. So JP, the average price for one of these cars is 31. This guy's got mods that probably receipts that outweigh the value of the car, the donor car. I think that's a ludicrous value for $20,000. I'd say well bought all day long. Whether you like safaris or not, that's a great car. Hell, you could put it back on conventional suspension and run circles around almost everybody up the hill to Good Vibes. What do you think of that value at $20,500? What did John, or didn't we cover John's car twice? What did that car sell for?
Yeah, that car sold for $19,990.
Yeah, I'd rather have this. And John's car
was
was cool, yeah. But this is unbelievable. 350 horse, woo!
Yeah, this definitely has a lot more poop than the little 924 turbo. Weird and unusual is the theme of the night, and this definitely qualifies. I mean, stuff like this is what gets attention at car shows. You show up to a car show with a McLaren, and nobody cares at all. You show up with this $20,000 goofy-looking thing with a shovel on the roof rack, and you're gonna make friends. People are gonna come over and talk to you. I do think it's kind of weird that we so often see transaxle cars made into safari cars that are turbos. Like a turbo car seems like the worst possible platform to be driving through the dust and the dirt of the desert. I mean, you need airflow. You need to get, it's just like, that's the one thing I don't quite get, and I think that maybe that's why this car didn't do as well, because the people that are thinking of using it as intended are going, God, I'm going to have to, that roof rack, instead of having an extra wheel and tire up there, I'm going to need just to have a case of air filters or something. I don't know. What do you think of that?
I think they think less of the turbo stuff, because they're not thinking that far ahead. They're thinking, the off-road people are thinking more like, oh, if I break a control arm, what's a Porsche control arm cost versus what a Tacoma control arm costs, and stuff like that. But either way, like you said, I think it's well bought. It's super fun, and you will win at any car show you go to.
For sure. All right, guys, what do you think of the results on that 951 Baja? Let us know. What's the next car on the list? Michael Deeb.
All right, JP, really quickly, there was an original owner, 1992 Toyota Celica GT Convertible with a 5-speed manual running no reserve on BaT. Our car showing just 72,000 miles out of Bluffton, South Carolina. So, JP, we've talked already. Jeff brought up Radwood. This would be a great Radwood car to roll around in. I also think a car like this is a fantastic sort of like entry-level point for somebody that's just sort of getting into sort of the classic car scene. These cars would don't necessarily have a cult following like other Toyota products, but certainly a car that everybody remembers from their youth, from their high school, if they're our age, that sort of thing. It's the car that everybody will sort of tilt ahead at and spend a couple minutes admiring when you roll up to your favorite car show. And oh, by the way, it's probably a pretty fun car to drive. Not fast by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still a Toyota, and it's a manual, and it's a convertible. And this one looks to be in really nice condition. JP, our friends at classic.com tell us that this generation 5, I think if I remember from my notes, these convertibles with a manual typically bring $8,000 in the secondary market. This car was a lot nicer than I think an average one would be. Thus, I thought the number would go over but not break 10. My bid, $9,200. JP, shockingly to me, you were under on this car. You just came in at $7,500. And Buddha, who damn near drives a car like this, doesn't he have like a GR86 or something? He came in at just $7,000. Buddha, where's the love? So, Jeff, what do you think of this Radwood Gold car in really nice condition? Again, it's not going to win any contest of speed, but, man, it sure looks like it's been well taken care of considering its age. Where are you at on this one?
So, yes, it looks super clean, which is super awesome, but there's only like one model of Celica that gets any love right now. And what is it, like the GTS, ST, whatever, the all-track. Because everybody wants Supras. Everybody wants Corollas and then the off-road stuff. My initial guess was going to be 11, and I think that's probably pretty high because it is neat. It is very clean too. So, but I'm going to drop it to 9,500.
And we can watch as you're drinking, as we see you talk yourself out of your instincts, which are really good, and you relied on your head, which is not in a good space. Your bid at 11 would have been much better because our car hammered for $12,888 where it sold on 41 bids. So, JP, that's obviously every penny for this car. Do you think it's well bought at $13,000?
Well, I mean, I still think it's a really cool car, but I dug through I obviously read the description, dug through all the comments, and not one mention of the Takata airbag. So that was the one thing I was worried about. It's like, these things, you do not want that thing blowing up in your face. It is not good. There is literally a stop driving recommendation from the NTSA on these. So if you do buy something like this, you got to take it down to your shop and immediately have that steering wheel replaced with just a prototypo or something fun. And then you don't have to worry about it. And then you don't you can just pour sand in this engine. It's going to be a fun car forever. It could be the last car you ever buy if you wanted it to be. I don't know. Pretty little car, lots of fun, but that airbag is definitely scary. Yeah.
Jeff, fun fact, you probably don't know this. JP won an Oscar, but he returned it because it had a scratch on it.
Yeah. Nice.
I don't know if I quite understand clean, that joke, but I don't.
You would find a flaw with everything. Oh my God!
What do you mean? I love patina. I'd be like, can I get an old one? Can I get one from like the 30s or something? Do I have to take a new one because these new ones aren't as good as the old ones?
Oh
All right, guys,
God.
we've got predictions to make. What kind of weird and unusual cars will we talk about on the other side of the break? Stick around. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, I'm looking at my watch, and it is time for predictions. Weird and unusual cars. That's what's winning. That's what's crushing it on BAT and Cars and Bids. Your normal cars, keep them. Nobody wants them. What's the first car we're going to make a prediction on with Jeff from Hooniverse? What's the first car, Michael Deeb?
JP, if we get into the 90s and we start talking about cars we really wanted when we were younger guys and we couldn't even afford, I don't think I could even afford this, but I was in love with the 1998 Acura Integra Type R. I just thought it was pretty badass, especially since at that time it only came in white with the white wheels. All the magazines said it was the greatest handling front-wheel drive car of all time, and the whole concept of variable valve timing and the VTEC was like a two-stroke motorcycle where all that power would just come on and you could rev it to 8,000 RPM. And essentially it was a track toy that you could go buy at a Honda dealership. I mean, like, my God, what more could you possibly ask for? So I've always been kind of a not so closeted Honda fanboy, all from the VTEC generation and all the cool cars. I did own an S2000 for a little while. And so this was just one of those cars that I always had looked at lovingly. This particular example that is on Bring a Trailer right now is listed out of San Jose, California, and is showing 123,000 miles. The car looks to be in very good condition, namely because it's not all bent to hell. It's got a clean Carfax, and it's not loaded with a bunch of like wacky modifications. It looks to be generally pretty stock. It's also a 2-owner car, and in the comments, the owner of the car, who's had it for almost 30 years himself, says that as he was getting ready to list the car, a colleague or a person he knows of who's like a big Integra Type R guy came over, looked at his car, and took it for a test drive, and essentially sort of signed off on it and said, this is a really good one and it drives like it should. So it seems by all accounts to have a good endorsement, very decent provenance with long ownership, and being all stock and no accidents. Car does obviously show the wear and patina of a car with like close to 125,000 miles on it. But I don't care because as far as I know, these cars are pretty bulletproof and a hell of a lot of fun to drive. The question remains now, as we get into there's a proliferation of the young timer movement. Does a car like this that has that many miles, does it still bring sort of collectible or kind of, as we say, outrageous money? Will the odometer start to diminish the shine of this particularly cool car? Oh my God, I'm looking at this. So this car was delivered and sold in Corte Madera, which is right down the street from me here in Marin County. When it was new, JP, these cars were only $23,935. I think the reason why I didn't buy one is because I had so many points on my record that my insurance made it impossible for me. Like I could afford the payment, but I couldn't afford the insurance. So there you go, JP. Long in the tooth Type R, but it's still really stock, and this era of cars is going crazy. Is this one still destined to bring the big money, or is it the odometer? Is it these sort of half-assed assets? Is it the actual patina on the car? What do you like? What don't you like of this? Really cool, and to my knowledge, this is like the 97, 98s that are all white. That's the real Type R. Where are you at on this car?
How often do I bash boomers? I feel bad every time I do it because I love boomers, but boomer sensibilities drive us a little nuts in the car world. This particular boomer is my spirit animal. I mean, come on. This guy went down to the dealership in this car's a 98. He said it was only like a year old when he went and got this car, or if that, so he bought it 27 years ago. He was in his 50s. He was our age back then when he bought this car, basically brand new. And he's been rocking a manual sports car like this whole darn time. That's awesome. So we've got to hold up our drinks to this octogenarian who's been keeping the flame alive. And we also have to give him credit for knowing what BaT is, because I can't tell you how many car dealers I've talked to, like used car managers at car dealerships that don't know what bring a trailer is, to their peril, right? It's amazing that a fella like this, it's keeping him young. He's got a young type of car. The downside, though, is that unfortunately, he just doesn't, he knows enough to know that he needs to advertise this car on this platform, but he doesn't know that he needs help. And sometimes it's tough for the older gentleman to really kind of go, yeah, you know what? I need someone to just, this is exactly the kind of person that needs to hire someone like the Bid Nerds to help them sell what is otherwise just this car could do very, very well. Yeah. Spend literally $500 or more, $1,000 on a detail and paint correction. Fix the rock chips. There is a crack on the front valance. It probably would make sense to spend the $1,000 or so to replace that thing. Thoroughly go through this car and make it beautiful because it's there. I mean, you're looking at these shots of the interior and it's got DNA all over it. It's like, ew, right? This looks like a Facebook Marketplace ad for, a 1996 Jaguar S with 600,000 miles on it, right? It's just, it's got, I mean, come on. It wouldn't take much. Plus, you also need photos, and you need a video that sells the romance and the excitement of owning something like this. I love this car, but this is just not acceptable. Gross, dirty, every nook and cranny is just full of dirt. This guy went out, he cracked open the hose, and in true boomer fashion, he took a big slurp of water out of that hose and then washed the car with dishwashing soap and a mitt that he's been using for 30 years and dragging the rocks across it. The poor, I just feel bad for this seller because he's going to miss out on, this car is worth $20 to maybe 30% more than he will realize when this auction's done. Jeff, what do you think of this car, and what do you think of this listing?
I agree with everything you just said. The car is awesome. I almost think the photos and a detail would go a longer way than even fixing some of the blemishes. Just list the blemishes as like, this is a driver, but if then present it so cleanly and get into the emotional aspect of it with the proper video, and hit on the points that people who wanted this car when they were younger now could maybe afford it when they're older, and you're like, you know what, this is the one to buy because of the mileage, because of the condition. But man, a detail and some professional photos would not skyrocket, but kick it up a lot.
At least 20%, right? I mean, maybe more.
It's a super cool car, and yeah, the early ones were white only. I think the later years were yellow or black. And then it's I agree with you. Yes, it needs love to sell. I sold a car on Cars and Bids that was not a great car, and because the photos were fantastic, it exceeded what I was hoping to get for the car.
Yeah, there you go.
Assets matter. All right, what's this car going to bring, Michael D? What do you think?
All right, JP, according to our friends at Classic.com, the average selling price of the early Integra Type R is $44,000. JP, I really vacillated on this one. And again, for all the reasons, you really did steal a great deal of my take because I agree with you. The assets are poor, and a little bit of money invested in the reconditioning of this car would go a long way. I struggled to see if this car might, fall flat in the high 30s or make it into the $40,000 range. JP, our car is currently sitting at $30,000, and it has just one day to go. That $30,000 comes to us by way of just 9 bids. But again, he's getting good comments and good engagement in the comments, and I do think he's going to get a little flurry at the end. So my bid, JP, is $41,000, but I'm going to agree with you to the point where if he had spent $2,500 to $3,500, this guy might get another $10,000 to $15,000 at Hammer, and that's a bummer because. But with that being said, this car could let go in the high 30s or the low 40s, and I think if somebody buys it there, it's well bought because for a few dollars you could make a $50,000 car out of it. So $41,000 is my bid, JP. I don't know if it'll sell for that number. It's tough to tell who's got realistic things. Realistic sort of mindset. If this guy's as old as you are, as you say, and he's willing to let the car go, then I think at that point, my guess is that this car is probably going to sell once it hits $35,000. So JP, 41 to you. What's your bid on the Integra Type R?
I'm going to surprise you, and I'm going to go over. I'm going to go 42. And say that this should be a $50,000 plus car. I think the market is hot for stuff like this right now, and because the assets aren't there, the car is going to do well, and it's going to be this guy is going to walk away. He's going to probably be happy with that number. He's going to be like, yeah, I didn't have to take photos and do all the work to get another $10,000, but not realizing that he's just leaving money on the table that he could have passed on to his kids or grandkids. What do you think, Jeff? What's this car going to bring?
Yeah, when it first popped up on my screen, I was thinking 42, and then as soon as we dove into some of the other pictures and I saw more about it and we talked about it, my number was 38, which, again, if it goes for that, it's still a steal. But, yeah, they needed to put more effort into this one.
Okay, 38,000.
And it is one of the best front-wheel drive cars out there of all time.
Yeah,
it really
cool
is.
car.
That is true.
Cool
all right,
car.
Weird and unusual for sure. Not just the car, but the seller and the listing is definitely weird and unusual. Weird and unusual cars bring the big money. Weird and unusual listings, not so much. All right, let's move on. What's the next car on the list, Steve?
All right, JP, I picked this car for me because I want a car like this for my daily. Now that I live in Marin County and it's sunny all the time, Jeff, it's a little bit like being in LA, but without all the weird people. Just actually, the people here are weirder. Is this 1991 Porsche 911 Carrera 2 Cabriolet with a 5-speed manual transmission showing just 18,000 miles from new? Listed out of Akron, Ohio. This particular car looks pretty handsome in Guards red with black leather interior. It's also equipped with a limited slip differential and JP 17-inch cup wheels. So, JP, since this show is called The Bid Nerds, let's nerd out on something because I have a question for you that I think you might know the answer to, and that is, were cup wheels available as an option in 1991? I didn't think they were available until 92. What do you say about that little nugget of trivia?
That is a very good question. What year did the California Roadster
92,
or
America Roadster.
That wasn't until 92 as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
so
that's,
I mean,
you taught me that there is a Gen 1 and a Gen 2, a dot 1 and dot 2, and it has to do with the mirrors and the gaskets that seal the engine, the square G-body mirrors and the liquid gasket on the dot 1s from 89, 90, and 91, and then 92 through 94 have the sport mirrors, those rounded, really teardrop mirrors, and then we got regular conventional gaskets, and that's what denotes the dot 2s. And I only thought cups were on dot 2s, and this is a dot 1. So my curiosity is as to whether or not these could have been OEM or somebody put them on the car down the road.
Yeah, did the cup wheels come earlier on the 968s? That's a very good question. I think this car probably would have come with D90s, but that said, it is a beautiful car, and D90s or cups, either way, it's going to be a great car. I love that it's got a limited slip diff, option code 220, so it's going to be a lot like your RSA that you used to have, only you'll be able to drop the top. The problem with this car, the thing that just ticks me off is how does a car like this that's 35 years old, how does a car like this only have 18,000 miles on it? That's just criminal, man. I don't know. That just makes me angry. The Carfax says it's a C4. It's not. It's a C2. Why? That's another question I wanted to bring up. Maybe Jeff, you've got an opinion on this. In 2025, why does Carfax still hold so much weight, and why haven't we gotten a better alternative? That AutoCheck or that other one is just nonsense. It's not any better. I hate Carfax. I went to bat with them on my slant nose car because on Carfax there was a big old upside down red triangle saying that there was an odometer discrepancy, which no shit, why does it have a big red thing? It's not. It made it look like a salvage, and it obviously wasn't. So it just ticks me off. What do you think of this car, and what do you think of Carfax?
So I've used AutoCheck more than Carfax personally because in a different life they were a client of mine, and so I just used them out of that reason. So I don't have a strong opinion either way. And the cars I buy cheap cars, so I don't care about the Carfax. This car is very pretty. I don't know enough about Porsches to agree or disagree on the wheels, but you guys I'm going to believe you on that one.
We don't know.
Weird that it shows up as a C4.
Yeah.
I think cabs aren't as exciting I feel like there's a market for cabs and it's not as wide as like even Targas. I think Targas are more interesting than cabs, but that could be me speaking personally. That blemish on the fender is weird. I wonder if there's a respray and then like somebody bumped the fender after the respray, but why would it have a respray at 18,000 miles? So I'm sure it's a blast to drive. I'm not a huge cab guy. This car doesn't speak to me like some other Porsches do. I thought your Porsche is way cooler than this one with the LS3. I don't know. I don't know where this thing's going to land. I'd be very curious.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that cabs, everybody that watches this show regularly knows that I'm a huge fan of convertibles. Part of the reason is because you can get basically the same car for half the price. They just never bring the money of the coupe. And I actually prefer the roof coming off. I get it that a lot of people don't. The weird thing that we find all the time, and I don't know if this has been your experience, but it's like people who prefer coupes hate cabrios. Like they get angry about convertibles. They're mad that they exist. Whereas people that like convertibles are like, well, they're both cool, and there's value in both of them. I like coupes, I like cabs. Why are you so mad? Relax.
I've been guilty of that in the past. I will review a car, and I recently did the launch event for the new Vantage Roadster. Great car, very well engineered top. Give me the coupe all day long. But while driving it, because the top is so well engineered, when it's up, you can't even hear the road noise, stuff like that. So I've softened as I've gotten older. But younger Jeff would be like, nah, convertibles are gross. Ew, give me the coupe. So you're not wrong.
Chicks dig convertibles. All right, what is this car going to bring? Michael D.
All right, JP. With 2 days to go, our car is currently sitting at $25,500. And that comes to us, JP, by way of 10 bids. So it's off to a pretty decent start. JP, our friends at classic.com tell us that the average selling price in the secondary market for a manual C2 cab from the 964 generation is $57,000. This car with the low odometer, the attractive wheels, and the limited slip differential, despite the blemish that raises questions about paintwork and quality and this, that, and the other, I still think, JP, these cars were $35,000 to $40,000 forever. And then COVID and whatever, 964s have truly gone through the roof. And now cabriolets are bringing collectible money. So despite Classic.com telling us the average selling price for one of these is $57,000, I think this car here is going to inverse those numbers. My bid, believe it or not, JP, $75,000, low odometer, manual transmission, two-wheel drive, cups, classic radio, limited slip. What more do you want? Obviously, Guards Red is a little bit boring, but I don't think that'll matter. I think it's got enough universal appeal that somebody's going to pay through the nose to have. That's still cheaper than a coupe. If this was an 18,000 mile coupe, it'd be $150,000. Yep. So $75,000, and I don't think I'm out of line saying it. Where are you at, JP? I dare you to go over me.
Yeah, I'm not going to go over you because yes. If this were a coupe, it would definitely be worth probably $140, 130, 140, something like that in Guards Red. Guards Red is, the least desirable color. If it were a 92, 93, 94, then you're definitely in the $150 range, maybe even more. But I love this car. Of course, I think you would look good in it, Deeb. You should buy this thing. But I'm going 65,964 and handing it off to Jeff because unfortunately the Cabrio phobes, it's 2025, but people just haven't gotten over there's just still so many Cabrio phobes and bigots out there. It's going to hold it back. Jeff,
it was kind of fun letting our new guest blindly pee on your feet about cabrios. That was awesome, Jeff. Great take.
Yeah, but the comments don't agree with me, so that's fine. I agree with you that Guards Red is boring, but I think maybe if this was like some guy who's buying his first Porsche, Guards Red could be exciting because it is a historically important color for the brand, or at least it has its merits. I was gonna go 65, but I can't go 65, so I'm gonna surprise you and go 67 to inverse my Cabrio hate because the mileage and mileage and a manual gearbox car is kind of an unbeatable combination though.
And Boom. It's a C2, right? Because so often the cabs are C4s. I mean, it's just that's the real trouble. And I've owned C4 cabs, and I think they can be set up to be fantastic cars, and I still think they look great. But a C2 is you're saving yourself literally 350 pounds in the front end from that differential. The car is going to handle differently. This is going to feel like a 911. Put a strut tower brace in the front and some coilovers on this thing. It's going to feel just as good as any coupe you ever driven. So they're not too floppy.
These are good. I've driven the cab on this. It's a good car. It's a really good car.
With a couple of things, the strut tower braces and coilovers, definitely, the more you do the suspension, you can make these as neutral as any coupe. You really can. All right, let us know what you guys think of the 964 cab. And one more last word before we move on, Deep.
Lots of bids in the 50s and 60s. Only BD is with me at 70,000 even, but everybody from 48 to 69, that's where all the bids are.
Yeah, guys, it's got 18,000 miles. If it normally this car, you look at this car and you would think it's going to have 80,000 to 150,000 miles. Now those numbers are for that car. The 18,000 miles, that's ridiculous. Keep in mind though, maybe they're on to something because what we didn't really dive deep. We don't know if the clutch has been done. With that liquid, goopy, silly, gasket that they have between the transmission and the engine on those fail all the time, and that's going to cost you some money. A clutch replacement on this car is probably a $10,000 job these days. It's crazy how expensive that stuff is now.
Wow. That Jeff, you just learned about the Takata airbag of liquid gaskets.
And if the car has 18,000 miles, I guarantee the clutch hasn't been done.
No, not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next car. What do we got? Talking about weird and unusual cars, crushing it on the auction platforms. What's the next car? This one definitely qualifies.
All right, JP, sent to the bid nerds by several sources, all paths leading to the same mountaintop. Chris Carbine, Sahan, Yuri. Everybody wants to see our take on this 1987 BMW 325e with a 6-speed manual attached to an where the hell did it go? M62 4.4 liter V8. Yeah, M 4.4 liter V8 that has been supercharged. So out of Moraga, California, true mileage unknown. The mileage doesn't matter, even though there is some history on the chassis. I think this car was involved in an accident, but it looks like they've gone through everything and essentially restored the car to what you see here. Our bid turn tells me, JP, and you can chime right in, that those Hartke, am I saying that correctly? Hartke? How do you say the name of the brand of the wheels? Hartke.
Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry.
I've always said Hartke, but I have no clue.
Hartke, right. Yeah. So Hartke wheels, Type C wheels, those 17-inch wheels. That set of wheels is super rare and valuable. That they might bring $7,000 alone for the rims. But we're talking about an E30 chassis with unbelievable upgrades, namely under the hood. Believe it or not, this aluminum V8 only weighs 10 pounds more than the steel inline six that came out of there. Probably add a few more pounds for the supercharger and the extra cooling and strut braces and whatnot. But all in all, it's still an incredibly cohesive package, and this motor winds up sitting lower in the chassis, so the handling matches the looks and the power and everything else. Willwood calipers, a deep front chin spoiler. It's got some cool seats in it. I am digging everything about this car, JP, and we've still got 2 days to go until it closes. So the guy did the engine swap, and that aluminum V8 makes about 300 horsepower in normally aspirated form. He drove it around and decided that wasn't the power upgrade he was looking for, and later added the supercharger. And now we're talking about a measured just under 500 horsepower to the tires. So JP, tell me if this sounds familiar. About 490 rear wheel horsepower and a package that weighs probably close to 3,000 pounds. This recipe sounds eerily similar to the car you just sold. What do you think, comparing apples to pears in this regard? Because the cars are actually pretty similar. Where are you at on the E30 with a supercharged V8 and about 500 tires? I dig it, man.
Yeah, it looks badass. And that engine, I just wanted to get to a shot of the engine here. I was trying to find that before it came over to me. Look at this thing. I mean, it looks like it belongs in there. I mean, that looks stock, especially with the BMW covers and all that kind of stuff. But that being said, I mean, okay, almost 500 horsepower. You had to have a V8 and a supercharger to get 500 horsepower. Why didn't you just go with an LS3 and have a platform that is way more reliable? You get 400, 500 horsepower without a supercharger. You put a supercharger on it, you're going to get 600 or 700 horsepower out of it. And like our guest Jeff said, you could fix it in a Walmart parking lot. I definitely like that. Jeff, what do you think of this build?
I think the build is spectacular. This looks like something Mike Burrows from StanceWorks would have created, especially with the wheels choices. It's a spectacular car. Probably drives phenomenally. I'm not sure that the builder is going to get out of it as much as they put into it. It's going to be one of those cases. I think it'll be well bought. I don't know if it'll be well sold.
All right, Deeb, what's it going to bring? We're getting close to the end of the show, so we got to get some numbers. What do we got?
Yeah, M-Tech 1 body kit. It's got a get drag 6-speed transmission, and the limited slip came out of a Z3M. So, JP, our car is currently sitting at $45,571, and that comes to us by way of 16 bids, and it still has 2 days to go until it closes. JP, our friends at Classic.com tell us that the average selling price of an E30 generation 325e is just $13,000. Initially, I put that this car was going to get to 68, but with 2 days to go and that kind of bid action and the kind of cohesive package that they built here, JP, I think this guy's going to do really well. I think he's going to get similar number to what you got. So I'm going to go 10 grand higher. I'm going to say $78,000. And I have no idea if it'll sell for that number, but 78 grand is my bid. JP, are you going to go higher and say that this guy gets equal money to what you got? Where you at?
Well, I mean, E30s have always been coming after 911s. This era of car is great. I love E30s, but you know, we've seen E30 M3s really drop in price badly. There was a while there where E30 M3s were equally as they were worth more than their contemporary of the 911. Now that's just not the case. Whereas air-cooled 911s just keep going up and up and up. It seems like E30s of all types are either just sitting flat or straight up dropping. This car is going to be an exception because it's a crazy awesome build. I think it's going to do well, but I don't think it's going to break 70. I'm going to say 69, 325 and hand it off to Jeff. And you're right. There's no way you could build this car for that.
No.
What's it at right now?
45,571.
Yeah,
with 2 days
to go.
Yeah.
Golly. Yep. I was gonna say something like 68 for this, and I think that's like really well sold actually at that point. Because you can't get the value that you put in this car, and to the builder's credit, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I just changed my bid from 68, so I think you guys are in the hunt. But I look at this, and like you said, JP, you opened with the fit and finish looks like it's stock, and then you literally asked the question, well, why didn't he go with an LS? I'm like, well, because he was trying to make it look like it's stock, which is to some people's taste, that's really important. And I think to that degree, the guy executed really, really well, and I think he's going to be rewarded for it. So I think he's going to go over your bids, but that's just a hunch. We'll see. JP, do we have time for one more?
I'd rather have 200 more horsepower than anyways. All right. Well, real quick, before we move on to the next car, I don't know if we really have time. We're kind of over.
Yeah.
But, Jeff, do you think it would bring more or less money if an LS swap done well?
Less.
There it is. Yeah, I mean, and that's fair, too, because, I mean, not only do you have a BMW engine, but you also have a supercharger on there, and the fit and finish is beautiful.
And it's integrated amazingly into the engine bay.
Yeah. All right, Deeb, let's do this last car, but let's just rocket it. Let's do it in under 2 minutes. This is a quick round.
Okay.
What do we got?
All right, so there's a 1986 Alfa Romeo GTV 6 that's running as an alumni listing on Bring a Trailer out of Hopkins, Minnesota. Our car shows just 53,000 miles from new. Back in June of 2020, this car sold on BaT. That was right during COVID. Out of Canada, the car brought $36,000, which in of itself is a very high number for a GTV 6. So now the car comes back to market, and with 1 day to close, it's sitting at just $19,880. The big question here is whether or not the car will bring more than the $36,000 we believe this guy paid for it. So JP, our friends at Classic.com tell us that the average selling price for one of these cars in the secondary market is only $20,000. I think this car will get into the 30s, but I don't think it'll break the 36. My bid for this car is $33,006. JP, what's your number on a gorgeous GTV 6 with low miles?
Man, that's pretty. I love that this car exists. I wish that designers took chances like this. This thing is so neat. We'll never see cool lines like this again. But that said, I just don't think these are appreciated, and there's just not a big surge in Alfa prices. In fact, I think they're going down. This thing, I'm going to say $26,000 and hand it off to Jeff. What do you think?
Yeah, it's because the older Alphas look so much better, and I think that's the ones that people really want. And so I'm gonna say 24.5.
24.5. Boy, the negativity on this show, I swear to God. All right, there you go, Jimmy. That's
do we
show.
think the car sells at our numbers, guys, real quick?
No.
Yeah, I think this. If you own an Alpha, you know that these cars don't bring the money. And if you decide to sell, plus BAT's not going to give them a $30,000 reserve on this car. No way.
That's true.
Yeah. So
that's
true.
I should have said a higher number just to make my partner feel better. I think he has one in pieces in one of his garages. All right, guys.
Well, at least mine has a motor, Jeff.
This one doesn't either.
Yeah.
This one behind me doesn't either.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everyone find you and follow you? Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah,
as if they don't know already.
Hooniverse.com and Hooniverse on YouTube. And then also just go to AutoTrader, and I do almost daily news videos and video buying guides for AutoTrader over there. So those two would be wonderful if you could do that.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And we'd love to have you back on. You were great, Jeff. Thanks for joining us as Third Nerd.
I'm sure maybe we'll see some videos from our Cars Unknown channel on AutoTrader, right?